welcome back to the Cocktails, Code, and Conversation podcast. It's been a minute, not really, just last week, but it feels good to be back, get the interviews back. And of course, we have another special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Aubrey Turner to the pod.
Thank you, Mr. David Lee.
All right, Aubrey, go ahead and introduce yourself, man. Let the people know who you are, what you're all about.
Hey, good people. My name is Aubrey Turner. I work in cybersecurity, work in identity. I work for Ping Identity, and prior to that, spent some time at Optiv. And what?
Sometime you was there for
sometime. I did a stretch. I won't quite call it a bid, but I did. I actually can't even 10 years ish between Optiv and Fishnet Security. So yeah. I'm doing the math right. And then prior to that, what got me into cyber, what got me into tech is spent some time at Deloitte and Touche. And that's really the foundation of my career in cyber and identity. Yep. And after college, spent a couple of years in banking, which actually really exposed me to the whole sort of controls and IT security and those kind of things. So that's the long and short of it. David, I'm sure we can kind of get into it some more, right?
Yeah, man. No, there's a whole bunch of questions that I didn't send you that I'm going to ask you that you're not prepared for. So because that's how we roll. It's so funny you said Deloitte and Touche. I'm so used to calling them Deloitte. I always forget that it's technically Deloitte and Touche. It's mostly just Deloitte now. But so I'm trying to think honestly, Aubrey, how we met, and I don't remember. I just know it had to be through Block. It had to be.
It's either Block or the SailPoint connection, right? Because right around the time I started selling SailPoint, and that was really Block is the one who brought me back into identity at Fishnet. Mm-hmm. And one of the main solutions that we were selling at the time was SailPoint. So it's got to be a sort of a Block SailPoint connection, which is how you and I know each other, and maybe even one of the Navigate type things.
Probably. That's right? What I'm thinking. I was thinking it was either like a Navigate or one of those like field channel events, right?
Yeah.
That we were doing or something like that or whatever. I just remember like for most people that I end up like getting really cool with is just like once I'm like, okay, this person's cool, like that's just it, right? So I was like, all right, that guy's cool. So if he's there, like it's gonna be a good event, it's gonna be a good time. We're good to go. And quite honestly, I'm just gonna be real. Like you were Black, so I was like, all right, it's not like there's a whole bunch of them. So I'm like, hey, he's gonna have to be cool, like because it's only ever gonna be like me and him,
right?
So
we stand out,
right? Just a little bit,
We stand out.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about like coming into specifically identity, right? It's this, super niche, part of cybersecurity. And, I really feel like it's grown up a lot, like in the last, 5 or 7 years and really gotten to the point where, it doesn't feel like a stretch anymore when you say like it is a part of cybersecurity, right? It used to feel like a stretch, right? We used to be like, this is cybersecurity, identity. They'd be like, what? Now it's truly getting to that point where it does kind of feel like that. So just, give us a quick rundown of, your career in identity and some of the things that you've seen and that you enjoy about it.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, my original sort of exposure to security was at the bank, right? I worked at a bank. I'm a mass hole, right? So I was, I wasn't born in Massachusetts, but I was raised there, went to college there. Like I said, worked in banking for a couple of years, realized I didn't want to be a banker, but I did like the IT and security things that I got exposed to. And just through some connections, some people I knew had an opportunity to move to Atlanta and get a job at Deloitte, which was outstanding, get out cold. This is Atlanta. Atlanta has continued to change, and it was even a different place when I first moved, but just a great opportunity for me to kind of spread my wings. Um, and really just through, I think in my case, and I'll make a long story very, very short, but just in my case, showing interest and curiosity
Hmm.
in what we called, it wasn't even cyber that ran cyber back then, right? It was
Right.
just information security is what we called it, right? And I just demonstrated a curiosity and an interest and sort of initiative to go consume some things, the books and things, and I mean, podcasts did not exist, right? So you had to go find these things
Right.
on your own, right? You go to Barnes and Noble, and then, maybe there were some things online, but just enough of a curiosity where some managers and some senior managers and a partner said, "Hey, we think this guy, right? He wants to do this. He's curious." So I got sent to training on Tivoli Identity and Tivoli Access Manager, right? And
Ooh.
yeah, buddy, yeah,
Ooh.
it's a different world. It's a different world. And I will say this about Deloitte, right? One of the things that they're really good at is training people, and so the other things, they had a lot of internal training as well. Like, so what are the
Nice.
fundamentals of cyber, right? What are the fundamentals of security? You mean the CIA triad, right? That whole thing, right?
Yep.
Got me my CISSP, right? Sent me to training for that. So really, really good place to kind of get a foundation and get exposed to security and particularly identity. And at the time, or after that Tim Tam stuff, it was just really sort of building, trying to do some things around single sign on, right? And David, right? Tim Tam is very, very complex, required a lot of heavy coding,
Yeah.
all that stuff, right? So that's where I got exposed to identity. And funny enough, worked in that space for a little bit. Then I got into privacy, which is how I ended up in a data privacy security background. So again, demonstrated some interest in that space. Um, I did some of the first cardholder information security program reviews. This is the precursor to what is now known as the PCI DSS.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I did some of those first few projects. That got me into data security, which got me into privacy, which is how I got my CIPP, right? And then before I left Deloitte, that's what I was doing. When I got to Fishnet, I started doing all kinds of things in cyber again, across the cyber domain, like everything from vulnerability testing to um, just all kinds of stuff, right? Because
Right.
Fishnet at that time was so small that everybody did everything. There was
Everything. Yeah.
50 consultants who all reported to one person. As it grew, though, and as Fishnet eventually bought into the identity space, that's how I met Block. That's how I got back into identity, right? And so this is now probably going on 7, 8 years, I think, probably, that I've been back focused on identity. So I've kind of come full circle, right?
Right.
So I started when it was sort of just new and super complex. Not to say that it isn't, but did some other things in cyber, right? And in the data security space. And then Block got me
Came
back
back. Yeah.
to identity, which I owe him, right, some a debt of gratitude for that, because it's been great, right? When I got back into identity, single sign-on had evolved so much to the point where, SAML was a thing now, right?
Right.
So it had evolved tremendously. People were certainly taking more interest in it. Still, probably not as much from a security perspective, right? But still looked at as an operational
Mhm.
play, right? Hey, how can we make these processes more efficient? But things change, right? Bad guys get smarter. Identity, definitely becomes more of a security play. And then there's other things like the IDSA and identity centric, security. So it's just become a lot more focus on it. And I like to say that folks like yourself, Block, myself, and other, a list too long, Bird, a list too long to even begin to mention the people that you and I know have really sort of pushed identity to now where it is more of
Yeah.
a pillar within cyber, right? It's not just a standalone thing that you just do.
Right.
So that's the long and short of it, really.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, and look, what I found that, two patterns. Number one, like nobody ever kind of really, you know, because it's so new, this industry, right? In relationship to the overall,
Yeah.
security industry, nobody ever really kind of picks it and wants to study. You kind of fall into it. But also, what I found is like the people who stay in it long enough also get very well rounded, right? Like you can come in identity, and it's like if you really want to get good at it, you kind of have to understand the greater scheme of what it fits in. So that experience for you to be able to go into data privacy, do other things, vulnerability testing, like you see where all of this fits into the bigger picture, which I think really helps to, number one, sell the story right to
Yeah.
executives to understand why this is important. But also you get to, for me it helped when I was a consultant and trying to sit down with customers and say, all right, let me understand these business requirements that you're saying that you need, right? But also keeping in mind, like, you've got a bigger picture that you've got to fit into. So while I can go and build this thing to do whatever it is that you want it to do, right, I need to keep the bigger picture in my head and go, okay, but at some point, right, you're going to need to go in liaison with your security folks. And that compliance is going to come through, and you're going to need to be able to answer like how this actually was done and what was assigned in access. And that's going to need to tie up to with if we need to come back and do a forensic investigation on something, right? And they go all the way back from the audit logs that the SIM tool is getting, all that needs to be able to line up. Those type of things, right? Where I'll nerd out for just a second, even coming down to like the data attributes and what you build into your identity and what you're logging, right? Stuff like that, right? You really don't think about it until you take a step back and really understand in the bigger picture, right? Like
Yeah.
how are all these things going to be used? So it's been really great to see it kind of grow to where it's at today. And I mean, yeah, I'm just gonna be real. Like I'm happy for it because it's paid me a shit ton, and so hey,
I cannot complain. So a couple of things strike me, right? One, I expressed some interest when I was at the bank. So I got the job in banking. I was a management trainee at this bank, right? And I just basically rotated through a bunch of the different departments, right? Everything from treasury um, to the back office processing, to the internal audit function. And one of my managers, I expressed a little bit more interest in the IT side of things. I was always just kind of curious how how our computers were networked, and it was a Novell network at that point, right? So that just kind of was just drawn to that, and I expressed some curiosity about kind of following that path a little bit more. And a manager just kind of is like, I don't know, he just didn't have my back really.
right,
But and I would love to sit here and tell you that sort of where I sit now, and in identity, my role at Ping, the previous roles that I've had, that all that was orchestrated, and I have a degree in economics, dude. Right? So, a way to approach problems, right? So from that perspective, but it's not like I went to school for computer science or anything, super technical. When I got out of school, figured out, hey, I want to go in this direction. Had a manager sort of just like, hey, dude, what do you? No, 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 no. It's like almost like he wanted to push me like in a commercial banking type,
right,
which is great. Those guys make a ton of money, but I was just more naturally interested in sort of the IT and the security side of things. And I'm just, knock on wood, blessed that I had that again, that the curiosity, um, and people just took notice. But I can't sit here and tell you right now that I certainly planned out all of this. I am thrilled and blessed that at that moment I said, at least I want to do something that that I like. I want to learn more about this, and that is what put me on this road in security and in identity,
right,
right? And I can't knock that. And it's just, once you have that, right, it's then about the hustle, right? Then you got to hustle, right? Then if somebody gives you a shot because they think you're interested, or they see aptitude and the work like you want to work, right? You want to accomplish something, then you got to just step on the gas, right?
yeah,
And that's how I'm here, right? It's again, it's not like I wrote down, hey, I want to be identity identity Roddy, whatever. I don't know.
Generati.
I like,
Come
it's
on,
not
man.
like I sat down and said like, hey, I wanted to be an identity cybersecurity person, right?
Right.
Again, I'd be lying if I said that, right? But as I saw the path kind of come sort of illuminate itself or what have you, then I just focused and kind of moved in that direction. And like I said, man, it's like you said, it's been great. I
Yeah.
can't even front on that. It's been
I mean,
wonderful.
look, there's a there's a lot of powerful things that you said in there, right? And I think again, one of the patterns as I've been talking to people over the last year is you see one big thing, curiosity, right? Like this, for all the shortcomings that this field has, right? And we'll get into those in a little bit, but at the end of the day, it really is a field that is about curiosity and your ability to, you know, kind of show that initiative and make things happen, right? That's what's, especially on the technical side, right? That's what's rewarded. It's like, hey, I was looking at this, I'm curious about this, I kind of want to poke around and see how this works, and I want to go find out more, right?
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about the tech field is it's all based on a bunch of curious people who just want to understand how stuff works, and that's it. And so what happens is when you show that initiative, you get around a bunch of those like, oh yeah, like, hey, this person is curious about this. Oh, here, let me show you this. Let me give you this. And then all of a sudden, like, you become more curious. You start eating, and then that whole thing fuels it. And people are like, hey, man, this person, this guy, this girl, like, they got it. Like, let's bring them on, because you realize when you're on a team and you're doing things, it's like you need a whole bunch of curious people who just want to go figure stuff out.
Yeah, I think the curiosity begets the initiative,
Mm-hmm.
which then begets people who want to help you or people who want to support you, which then begets success. And
Right.
however you define that, right? Whether it's you want to buy your first home or you want to pay off your student loan debt if that's a thing, whatever it is, right? But that curiosity begets that initiative, which then leads to other things. And it's just,
Right.
again, I'm not saying that's like it's a recipe, but it certainly helped me kind of get to where I am. And David, I don't know if you know this, but I wasn't even born in this country, so
Yeah,
it's
I
a
do know
whole that's a whole nother. We could do a whole podcast on that. The whole story, right? The what do I want to say? The challenges of coming to another country, right? Your parents not being born here, you not being born here,
that. Right.
and having to figure it out. And so, that whole part of my history, it's a great part of my background. I appreciate it, but it's also contributes to kind of my whole story and how I am, where I am, and all that kind of stuff. So
Right. So yeah, we're gonna perfect segue. Good job, Aubrey. Look
yeah,
at that.
thank
Didn't
you.
even didn't even have to like set you up for you. You just straight went there. So
Yeah. Okay.
um but I do want to talk a little bit about that, right? And to your point, like we can there's a bunch of other stuff I want to get to, and we can have a whole pod on that, and we'll let this flow how it flows. But like, with that, so with your background, right? And it's the Bahamas, right?
Jamaica, man.
Jamaica. Sorry, my
I don't
fault.
know already.
Thought
Nothing against my
right. Thank
Bahamian
you.
massive,
Exactly.
Caribbean, West Indians. Turn
Right.
up.
Yeah. I'm about to say now, all my Bahamian listeners are gonna be like, "Hey, what the hell, man."
Yes, no, but the little country of Jamaica.
Okay. Yeah. So, with that, like, it's different. It's different because not being born here, coming here, and then kind of growing up and seeing the plight, right? It's always interesting talking to people who aren't born here, but who have like the same complexion as me, right? So you're Jamaican, but you're going to be looked at as African American, right? Everybody looks at you and be like, oh, well, he's.
100%.
So it's like you get you get the full treatment of being black in America, but it's like, but I'm not American though. Like, I mean, I am, but I'm like, I wasn't born here. So there's a what I found in talking to other people like that is that it's a little different the way they perceive it. So I'm interested, right, to hear your take on that, right? So, how that was, kind of coming up and growing up here, and then what you saw from that as you started, your career path, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, particularly as I've, you know, I really appreciate the what my parents gave up, right?
Hmm.
To move my brother and I here, and there's a whole history around sort of the things going on in in Jamaica at that time, like any country, right? Its own struggles. But the one thing that I say that, and I can't. This is not a blanket statement, but I'd say the one thing I take away from that the sort of people migrating to the United States is it's and then again maybe I'll make it about the Caribbean people, right? Is like you don't move here to to mess up.
Right.
I was gonna drop the F bomb, but pull up a
Right.
little bit. I'll pull
Take
up
it,
a little bit, you know?
take it a step.
Well,
You'll get
listen, it's like my parents didn't move my brother and I to Massachusetts for us to not make something of ourselves.
there.
I'll
Right.
put it that way, right? And I don't, your point about we have the same complexion, so we're seen as Black Americans, but I want to say there is some difference, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it is because you move here, and you see this in other populations as well, right? It's like, hey, we have struggled, we've given up things, depending on how your journey was here. I have fortunately enough, my family we flew on a plane, right? Eastern Airlines, not around, right? I have a Vietnamese friend of mine who I worked with. He came here in the bottom of a boat, right? And
Yeah.
so however you get here, right? And part of that struggle as somebody who's immigrated to the United States, it's it's sometimes incumbent on you as that child to make something of yourself. Now it can be a tremendous amount of pressure or it can be a blessing, right? And so for us, part of it is like, yo, that sun is going down. You better get your ass inside.
Right.
Don't play, don't play around, don't mess around. You get inside, you do your homework, and sort of that whole discipline of just like again making sure that you are staying on the right path, however you want to define that, but just again, I truly owe my parents and my brother too, right? We both owe our parents so much just from again them giving up things, moving here, not being familiar with the United States. I mean, winter. I mean, they don't have winter in Jamaica, man. You know that. Like
And
snow.
then, and then they go
Seriously,
to Massachusetts, like, ooh.
Massachusetts. I think I had family there, right? So
Right.
that's why we moved there. But and so I think part of what again we have the same skin tone, but I think part of what sort of helped me somewhat is again that we did not move thousands of miles for you to not take advantage
Right.
of the situation. And I don't, and I'm not saying I can't, I don't want to disparage any other, race, creed, or color, or even other Black Americans, even other Caribbean Americans. I can just speak from my experience of what
Right.
it meant for my family to move here. Like my brother's an engineer, right? The rocket scientist type shit.
Yeah.
So it's it just wasn't. It's. I'm not going to say there was it was a like an ultimatum, but it's just like, hey, you got to get your shit together,
Yeah.
right? And I know plenty of other, folks in the Jamaican community that their families are like that. That's how it is. That's the expectation. That's the bar. That's the standard. You got to live up to it. Not everybody makes it out, but it's there if you want it. So
Right.
that's kind of how I look at it, and I I struggle, keeping it real, I struggle with some of the kids that I grew up with who were born here. And again, maybe Black Americans in the sense of being Black Americans, right?
Right.
I struggle because some of them are lost. Some of them, when my mom would tell me before my parents retired, my mom would always give me updates on some of my classmates. Oh, like, so and so is in jail, or so and so is dead. And 9 out of 10 times, unfortunately, it was one of my Black classmates. and it's like there's a little bit of survivor's remorse and
Mm,
guilt that sometimes you don't know how to place that. And I don't know if, like, again, sort of the structure that my family had, that they had this. I can't necessarily say they had the same structure. I didn't eat dinner in their homes often enough to know that, because I was like,
right.
parents were like, get your ass inside. Right. um but there's a little bit of like, did I don't know. It's just like, there is a little bit of guilt there, but at the
Yeah,
same time, you got to take, there's some responsibility, right? My parents taught
absolutely.
my brother and I responsibility. You got to bear, there's accountability and responsibility, and you got to bear both on your own. And you can't necessarily save or help everybody, because some people don't want to be saved or helped.
Yep.
But it's, again, to your point, your question. Yes, we have the same complexion. I just come from a little bit of different background. I feel like it's been a disadvantage and an advantage in terms of me getting, me being able to get where I am.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how else to put it, man. I don't want to say something stupid.
No, man, it's all good. Like, um,
Yeah.
and look, there's another. I'm actually planning content for 2021, right? And there's a lot of things that I want to dig into, and part of that is what you touched on a little bit of that, right? Like there is, why it's so important for me. Like on this podcast, people that listen to it now watch it, like when the videos come out, right? You're gonna notice there's just more people of color, right? And it's
Yeah.
not, and it's like I'm doing that for a reason. Number one, representation absolutely fucking matters, right? Like
Yeah.
people need to be able to see people that look like them in different fields, and so I'm obviously I'm in the tech industry, so I'm trying to highlight as many people as I can, just to show people like, yes, there's paths, there's things of that nature. Because for me, growing up in LA at the time that I did, like you just don't see it, right? And so it's hard to imagine yourself as something that you don't see, right? Like
Yes.
that
Right.
you don't, like, okay, like, all right, like maybe I could do this, but there's a path, right? There was no computer scientists rolling around the hood when I was coming up, right? Like
Yeah.
there just weren't any, right? Like so, there weren't engineers, there weren't doctors. There were street pharmacists, but I don't really think they count. So, like those are why it's so important for me to do that, but also just to highlight, right, the different paths, stuff like that. But like I'm planning a whole, just kind of talking serious on that, for 2021. So you know everybody watch out for
Yeah.
that. But
I I I I'd like to say, well, I know in my case, right? Because, again, there wasn't a complete lack of those images of successful people of color, right?
right.
My parents did all they could to make sure that we were exposed, and, within my family, right? My uncle here in Atlanta, he's a doctor, PhD, and there's several other folks in my family who've, gone all the way in education, right? So I had some folks like that in my family, and then the exposure that my parents made sure that my brother and I had to know that, even though that there were limited, people that look like us, that were, accomplishing things, whoever they were, my parents made as much of an effort to make sure that we knew that there were people
Right.
who had gone above and beyond, right? Had accomplished things that maybe people weren't aware of. And so, that, again, I got to take that back to just, fortunately, having a really tight family structure, parents who cared and gave a shit, and, who, education mattered,
Yeah.
and, learning and just being exposed to, different people. And again, I'll say this: it wasn't just people of color; it was just people as well, right?
Right.
So it wasn't always a person of color. It was people who were being successful as well, that, my parents made sure that, we knew about. And here's the thing, right? It's not my parents were really familiar, super familiar with the they weren't born here, right? So they don't, like, hey, going to college and going to job, and knowing sort of the pathway. So we were all sort of um, learning at the same time, but just, again, having the will and just desire to kind of figure things out.
Yeah.
And, I can't say I figured it all out, but,
Yeah. I
enough.
mean, You never do, right? Like
You,
this is
you
not
never
a
do, right? You just keep learning, right?
right, exactly. I think that's I think the sooner you learn that in life, right? That
Yeah,
life is life is not a test where you know all the answers and you can fill in all the questions, right? It's
yeah,
just a constant journey of learning, right? And as you know, I start to look at my life and like it used to be 5 years. Now I look at it like in 10-year segments, right?
mhm, yeah,
Like you realize how much you learn, how much you grow, and you see your viewpoints change, right? And you see
yeah,
that your priorities change and things like that. And it's all because you're constantly growing and learning. Like if that's not happening, right, then I'll speak for my life. Like if I'm thinking the same way now that I did when I was 29, like there's a problem, right? Like
yeah,
I haven't done
yeah,
enough. I haven't been like there's something happened. I got stagnant. I wasn't around a different amount of people to kind of stretch that. And that's important, as you kind of get older and get access to different things in life. So
yeah. Usain Bolt, world championship, fastest man alive, kind of thing. He had this post, like I want to say sometime this year or last year, and I don't know if it's an original post by him, but basically his point was that like people say, "Oh, you've changed," right? That will come back to the hood thing. Oh, you
mhm,
don't change, all that kind of stuff. But you should change.
right,
If you don't change, that means you're staying stagnant. You're not
right,
growing. You're not evolving. You're not learning. So you need to change. Doesn't mean you can't take others with you who want to be helped, but you have to change.
right,
You can't stay the same. If you can't stay
yeah,
stagnant, if you stay stagnant, that you're and to your point, right? Looking at your life in 5 or 10 year blocks and the things that you want to accomplish over that time, you're going to change. It's just a
yeah,
question of is it positive change or negative change? And it just stuck in my head when he kind of wrote that, and I was like, that makes a ton of sense. It's the
yeah,
simplest thing. Yes, you need to change. You have to.
yeah,
And
no,
people who look at you crosswise, or as we Jamaicans say, you know, bad mind you, not quite that way, but
yeah,
play it bad, just kind of think negative thoughts about you because you're changing, then they're not interested in
yeah.
your success or their success.
It,
So you
it
gotta.
was probably the one of the first hardest lessons I had to learn
Mhm.
from my mentors when I was one of my first mentor. I was how old was I? 23, 24, something like that. And he told me, he was like, look, the friends you have now, you're not gonna have in 3 years. And I was like, what? He's like, and I was like, no, man, you understand? Like we went to college together, we've done all this stuff together. Like he was like, okay, I'm just telling you. And he was like, look, the path that you're on and the things that you're telling me that you want to do and you want to accomplish.
Yeah,
He goes, there's certain people that aren't going to be there when that's done. He goes, and they're gonna reveal themselves to you like over the next like year or two. You'll see it.
yeah.
And I didn't want to hear it, man. I was like, I was very. I mean, I'm still stubborn, but I was really stubborn then.
What?
But yeah, right. It's just some people find it surprising. I'm like, what? It's such an easygoing guy. Like,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
not
like
surprised by that. But dude, that stubbornness is what allows you to stubbornness, perseverance,
yep,
depending on the situation, right? You're either stubborn or you're persevering, right?
right. Yeah, it depends on how the other person is perceiving it. Like, but it's the
Right.
same thing. It's like, all right, like that's. I mean, look, that's how you. I'm not. I've always a type like I don't look at my accomplishments. I don't like really list them off or
Yeah.
like put them on any kind of big thing because I'm just like, look, I'm not I'm not all that different from anybody else. It's just the quote that I love is like it's not if you're gonna win, it's if you're just gonna hang around long enough to be there. Right. And so it's
Yeah.
that thing to me. It's like, look, I'm going to figure this out. Right.
Yeah.
I just have to spend enough cycles, right, and put enough things together, ask enough questions, and I'll figure something out. Right. And then that's how it is. And what I've noticed, like, especially when I was like taking back to like delivering service and stuff like that, like, you know, all my projects always made it to production, all this stuff or whatever, just because it's like, look, you stick around and you ask when it gets hard, like you
Yeah.
ask the right questions, you do these things, like, and that might mean like, hey, guess what? I'm working 16 hours today. Right. Like that's the stuff
Yeah.
that people don't like to really hear. They want to see all that stuff or whatever. It's like, yeah, but like that meant that it's Friday and yes, I want to go be turned up.
But at the work
Like,
ethic, the
but
Pride.
if I don't figure this out, like we're, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's not going to matter. So
Yeah.
this Friday night, I'm staying here. I'm figuring this out. We're going through this. We're going through that. We're going through whatever. And it's like, it's those things, right? It's those things on a project. It's those nights that allow you to get over the hump. And then you can apply this to anything else, right? It's those things like when you put in that extra effort that gets you whatever you want, right? Like all the accolades and all that stuff or whatever. It always comes down to like, I'm gonna do my Colossus Deadpool like impersonation, 1 or 2 moments, right?
Yeah.
It's those, right? It's like 1 or 2 moments when you decide like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put in this effort. All right,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna start preaching. We're gonna take a shift.
Okay.
This is awesome, man, dude. Aubrey, I'm gonna have to come. You have to come back, man. There's so
Okay.
much stuff I want to talk about that I'm gonna
Okay.
have a panel
Happy
about. But so let's shift to kind of talking about the tech, right? So it's been, we've seen this maturity. It's been really cool, right? This past year, more so than ever, we've seen a really big emphasis on diversity and inclusion, right? Not just me yelling at people from my podcast, but like, unfortunately, we had the unfortunate events of like George Floyd, and that kind of led this country to a point that it hadn't been in a while, right? As I was watching coverage, it reminded me of, as a kid studying coverage of the civil rights movement when it was just like
Yeah. Yeah.
protests
Yep.
like everywhere, where you could feel like there was a real tension.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think. I was like, I wonder, right? I wonder if this was what it was like then, right? Like now, granted, the stakes were a lot higher then, right?
Yeah.
But you just felt that tension everywhere. So we saw a lot from companies and leaders kind of making these statements on diversity and inclusion. We saw some fumbles, we saw some things or whatever, but I want to get your take, right, on some of the, like, just from not just this year, a little bit about this year, like what you saw this year, like what's your response to some of that, but like, from a field perspective, from our industry perspective, what's your take on where we are at with diversity and inclusion, and what we can do going forward?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still a lot more that needs to be done. And it is again, I mentioned the sort of the accountability and responsibility, and that lies on both sides, right? Lies on lies on us,
Yeah,
right? And it also a ton on the companies and firms and institutions that we choose to work for. So I think there's a lot that needs to happen, a lot more that can be done. Some of a lot of the incidents that happened, certainly the ones that, like George Floyd, the Arbery,
yeah,
some of those just really they're just, I mean, you just watch them and you just can't believe you're watching it like
yeah,
with your own eyes, right? So just devastating, from just a human to human perspective. Like, how does one human treat another human like this, right?
right.
So, and it's called up a lot of, I wonder if the pandemic hadn't happened and some of
Mm.
these same incidents had happened, would the same sort of cauldron, and
Uh-oh.
would it have overflowed in the same way, or would those things have just
Uh-oh.
is this another podcast? Sorry. Would these same things
No, no,
have sort of flowed over and been highlighted and caught the same level of attention? I don't know if they would have. I honestly don't
yeah,
know if they would have. Like, I think it's like the perfect storm of things that have been happening and haven't been getting national attention, and again, a once in a century type of pandemic,
right.
right? So it's kind of the tipping point, the those kind of events. Um, one of the things that really kind of struck me, and I'll keep the vendors out of it, but I was representing Optiv at with one of our partners, and these two young um, black guys came up to me, and it's happened before. And the partner, whoever, always thanks you, right? Maybe there's a thank you gift, or you're sitting on a panel or something. There's always, and again, some of these people, they're friends, they're colleagues. Some of them are wonderful people, and so the thanks is truly appreciated. And I love doing those kind of those kind of events. But the best part of it, the proudest thing on this particular occasion, when these two black guys came up to me and said, "Yo, you know what it meant for us to see you on that stage with those people?"
Right.
That just, and again, in the moment, sometimes when you get invited to something like that, you may not be thinking about the impact that you're making just being on the stage, and the power of your words, and the power of just your presence, right? And that in that particular moment, this is before all this stuff happened, in 2020, just reminded me of my role, right, or just my part in just, I don't want to say be a role model, but just letting other people know that they can get a seat at the table,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not trying to big myself up or blow myself up, but these guys literally, man, I was just like, whoa, that is probably one of the most powerful things that has happened to me in some time. Just the fact that these guys took the time to say, hey, listen, man, we were so excited, so glad to see you up there, makes us feel like we're not just either tokens, or we're not just,
Yeah.
we can get there, right? There are people who, um, they're, they're obstacles, they're roadblocks. I don't want to diminish those at all. They do exist. There are glass ceilings, all that stuff exists, right? But again, people can accomplish things, and so that was one of the sort of proudest moments that stands out in sort of recent memory for me. That being said, there's still a tremendous amount of work. I think we need to be curious. We need to take initiative.
Yeah.
We need to demonstrate that we will be ready. That's sort of our part, right? And then certainly on the part of the folks that, again, whether we're starting our own company or we're going to work for somebody, they need to also be prepared and have the right programs so that those glass ceilings they can be shattered, right?
Right.
Some of the best teams that I've worked on have been a great mix of people, men, women, Asian, black, what have you, right? We've sort
Right.
of come together, solved, big problems. Specific to sort of our people, though, and people of our color, right? Again, our responsibility, right? We own that, right?
Yeah.
But also the companies and firms that we work at, they're certainly, they bear responsibility as well to make sure that, again, the glass ceilings and those kind of things are eradicated. The and again, without getting into it, it's got to be common sense, though, right? There's got to
Yeah.
be a common sense approach to it.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know, I don't know what exactly that means. Like, I can't give you bullet points, David, but the approach needs to be common sense in terms of those things. Like, I'm not asking for more than you would necessarily give to somebody else, but I want it to be just and fair,
Right.
right? And I guess fairness is probably what it comes down to. I want, it needs to be fair in terms of us having the same opportunity. And right, you, Bert, and I have talked about this, right? The person who, non-person of color, basically may get a shot to lead a team, and let's just say they throw up on it, it goes to shit. They could be given another chance to do that again. Whereas you and I, that door may slam in our face sort of
Right.
permanently, and that's not fair.
No.
So those are the kind of common sense things that I guess I'm talking about. But in terms of my part in this, I just want to make sure that I can be, I guess, somebody that somebody looks to and says, oh, this person is sitting in that seat or has this role or is working with these people. Oh, so he's gotten there. I think I can get there myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. We gotta we gotta show that it's possible. We gotta show that it's a path, and
Yeah.
we gotta we got to turn around, right? And we got to reach the hand out and make sure that that not only people can see, people that look like them in those positions, but know that like, better jobs of getting that access and approachable and all those things, right? Um, it's a big list of things that we need to do to get there. But I think it's, hopefully what we'll see is that the attention that it got at the levels that it got this year, at the board levels, at executive levels, people were talking about it. And kind of to your point you were making with the pandemic, you had no choice. We had nowhere to go, right? It's right there in front of you. You couldn't run from it anymore, right? And so
Yeah.
now the thing is, can we continue to keep this momentum and keep it pushing going forward? So,
I just want to say one thing. Add to that. One of the books I read when I was younger was a book by Reginald Lewis. Have you heard of him?
Mhm.
The title of the book was "Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?" And I gotta say, it was a book that I read when I was, I want to say I was either in college or maybe shortly after college at some
Okay.
point. And he was, I think he was he came from very humble beginnings. Remarkable man. Kind of was one of the first black billionaires, and he was a lawyer. I think he went to the Harvard Law School. Used the leverage buyout to build $1 billion business. Unfortunately, his life was cut short. I believe he passed away too soon from cancer,
Mm.
if I recall correctly. But that book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun, just kind of myself, right, just kind of said, hey, like this, why should they have all the fun,
Right.
right? And was I don't want to call it a map, a roadmap, but certainly a perspective on somebody who had accomplished a lot of things, who came from very, very humble beginnings, and against all odds, built $1 billion business, right? And stood out and was at the level with, as a minority, was at the table, at that commission table with those four other families,
Right.
that kind of that kind
Yeah.
of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like having those kind of conversations. So again, you got to find, whatever it is that inspires you, whatever gets you up, whatever motivates you. You can, if you look for it, you will find it. And I just want to, I'll just call that out as one of the books that I read earlier on in my career that was like, oh yeah, this makes a ton of sense. Like, why should I accept anything less, kind of thing, right?
There you go. All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Aubrey and I are going to get into the final question, but also we're going to talk about racing
Yeah.
right after this.
Okay.
Some t-shirts with you. MyLifeMattersToYou.com. MyLifeMattersToYou.com. You saw the shirt. I was wearing it on today's episode of the C3 Squad and the podcast. This is put together by a friend of mine, and I love the idea for the shirt. When he first said that he was putting this together, I couldn't wait, and I told him I'd be the first one to hop in line and get a shirt, and I definitely did. So it's got women's sizes, the nice Bible phrase there, men's sizes, adult hoodies. We got jackets, accessories, everything, even face masks, which is pretty cool. So with all that's going on right now in the world, right, especially what's going on within the black community, things we saw this year, I just thought this was a positive line of clothing just to put out there that yes, our life matters. This is why. So check it out, mylifematterstoyou.com. Appreciate it. Tell them the C3 Squad sent you. All right, so welcome back. We're gonna get into coming up in the final segment. We're gonna get to the last sip. And, I'll ask Aubrey the question that I ask everybody. But before we get to that, me and Aubrey got a debate coming in because we in the sound check, we were having a discussion, and I said we got to hold this because we got to continue as we get into the podcast. So I am the recent new owner of a Tesla Performance Edition Model Y, and I freaking love it. It's great. I'm loving everything about it. And so Aubrey, as Aubrey tends to do, issued out a challenge and said, we're gonna have to get out there and race. And I was like, I mean, yeah, but you're gonna lose. Like, why would you even set yourself up for that? But then I thought about it. He got me because I was like, I didn't really ask him what he was gonna be driving. So
All right.
what you got into the hood over there, man?
Listen, it's like don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Yeah, that's what's up.
Wow.
So we got your electrons against my dinosaur go-go juice. So right now I'm driving the supercar of station wagons, which is E63S AMG. So it's a Mercedes AMG E63S wagon. So it hauls ass. It
Uh,
picks up it hauls stuff from Costco and it hauls ass. I literally had a guy stop me in the Costco parking lot the other day. He was driving an AMG as well, and he goes, "Oh, I see you got the daddy wagon," and I go, "Yeah, I'm gonna get a daddy." But yeah, dude, this car hauls ass, and it's a sleeper. It looks
yeah,
like it looks like it's a station wagon. It looks like a station wagon, but
right.
mine's all like vadered out and shit. It's all like tinted out black. Yeah, man, it's
Okay. All right.
yeah. So I got something for that Model Y.
Okay.
Now, if you show up in a Model S plaid, yeah, that's a different. Come at me, bro, when you got a Model S plaid.
This guy. All right. Well, look, there's a Porsche track out there in Atlanta.
Oh, I was
So
just there, dude. I saw a buddy of mine is he he he's thinking about getting a 911. So we went to the dealer, and to kind of woo him, they invited him and a guest to come down to Porsche Experience Center. And yes, people, I live in Atlanta, so that's if that wasn't obvious. But so it went down there, man, and I gotta say, if I could do that like a couple times a month, that is one of the best therapies. Like hammering a car, at speed, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm a petrol head. Like I love cars. If I wasn't in identity, if I wasn't in cyber, I would be doing something in the automobile industry, right? Just love cars. I love things that go fast. Formula One season just wrapped up. Can't wait till it starts up. Speaking of black folk that have accomplished a lot, Lewis Hamilton. If you
yep.
don't know, go read up on the brother. Another guy who I believe he's got some Caribbean roots as well. I think his father was from is he Bayesian or Trinidadian? I forget which one. Mixed,
Right.
child. But listen, he's up there with the mostly white men that have
Yeah.
won Formula One, right? So incredible story, and if you don't know about him, go check it out. But yeah, I like things that go really 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 fast, and once or twice a year I get out and we'll either do one of these track days. David, if you're ever in Atlanta, we should go do the Atlanta Motorsports Park. They have these really really fast go-karts, and it sounds kind of, you're thinking go-karts. These things haul ass, and they pull like a couple G's.
What?
They track, yes. It's
Go kart?
yeah. Do you know yeah, you Mike Moreno?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, right? Yeah, he's the one who he's another speedhead, kind of guy. And I think earlier this year or last year, he's the one who told me about it. So we went up there. He's fast, man. Do not mess with that guy on 2 wheels, on 4 wheels. He's fast. He's fast. And I probably got like 40 pounds on him. So that's another, weight's a factor.
Right.
That dude is quick. So he and I went up there, and dude, like the next day I could feel sort of on my thighs because of when you turn the G's, like you get pressed against the sort of the metal frame because you're pulling so many G's, but
Right.
it's such a thrill. It's so awesome. But yeah, I love things that go fast. So yeah, you bring your Model Y, and I'll wave like this. Dude, I got smoked by a station wagon.
Okay. All right. All right.
All right.
Bring something else out the garage, but
for sure. No doubt.
It's I nowhere near a gearhead at all.
Yeah.
It's always been more of a like a curiosity for me.
Yeah.
With cars, I think the biggest thing, and it kind of came out of necessity when I was in college. I was broke, right? So I had a Nissan Altima, and I couldn't afford to go take it to somebody to go fix it. So I remember I was always in I don't know if it was AutoZone or whatever one of those places that'll go test your battery. But they used to have these and I haven't been in one in so long, like because I don't work on my car anymore. But I think with the Hayes manual, like, and it broke down. Like you would find like your year, and it basically broke down the car, like an entire book, like
Yep.
pictures and just
I know what you're talking
every
about.
single little like piece or whatever. So I bought
Yep.
that book one day, and again, I'm an engineer at the end of the day, right? So I'm a computer science. So I'm like, at the end of the day, I want to understand how things work. So I'm like, all right, if I can do an algorithm and take apart an algorithm, particular program, I was like, I can figure
Yeah.
this out. I'm looking at it, I was like, all right, this is not that bad. So I ended up doing a lot of work on also myself. Like I replaced my alternator, my battery, stuff like that. Things that I could easily get to. Granted, I'm in college. I don't have like a
Yeah.
garage somewhere. So I was like, whatever I could get to with some easy tools, I did that. And I don't know, that's kind of that kicked that curiosity for me. So I wasn't much like anything. Once I take something apart, like now I don't like, I want to say fear, but that's not really the right word. Like now I'm not worried about like breaking something. It's like, oh, like I know how this, like, okay, this is what this does. Cool. I'll take it
Yeah.
apart, put it back together, stuff like that. So I kind of got into it. I picked up so after college I picked up the C230 Mercedes.
Yep.
They have for a little small little hatchback. I picked that up. And I had this mechanic that was out of Manassas, and he was from Germany, like worked on them, and like he did like a little tuning on that one or whatever. And that's when I kind of got into a little bit. Like I would buy, like I had like my I covered like my racing tires. I have my regular tires and the ones where I was like, all right, yeah, I'm kind of go
You went
down.
Fast and Furious?
Not quite, right? Like, but then after that, it just just life stuff.
Well, life happens, man.
Yeah, like
I had a couple sporty little cars. I had a Acura Integra for a little bit.
dude,
Had a
like
couple.
that fit you so much too. Like
What?
you would an accurate Integra. I'm just like I can totally see it.
Yeah. I had an Acura Integra. I had two of them. I love them so much, man. Great freaking cars. The one I had when I was in college. My mom always knew when I was coming home because I was just ringing those gears up, and I was, like heel toe downshifting, like handbrake. Like my mom. Oh, he's coming out. He's home. My oldest son, the Fast and Furious. I don't even think Fast and Furious is out yet. Actually, close, but not quite. But yeah, I just had an affinity for cars and things that go fast. I mean, heck, I'll watch speedboat racing. I just love things that go fast, man. Planes, trains, automobiles, anything that goes zoom, man. Speaking on that, like, why should white guys have all the fun? Before I even read that book, I grew up in Massachusetts, right? So I took up skiing, right? Just to see what the deal with it was. Like, why do people like doing this, right?
Yeah.
Just exposing yourself to different things, and then so
Yeah, exposing yourself to cold.
it is cold, but I've recently rediscovered it, and I love it, man. If you want to go skiing sometime, let me know.
I passed, man. I did it as a kid. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm
All
good.
right. It's good as an adult too, man. I'm serious.
I don't like cold. I don't like cold. So it's not like it doesn't, and I don't care. Well, you got to get the right line, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It is a pain in the.
I put it like this: it's funny. We're just talking about this at work, and we're like, oh, maybe next year for the holiday, holiday party. If the world's a little bit back to new normal, we'll do something. And CEO was talking about like we'll go skiing. Like I was like, look, I'll be down at the lodge with the hot chocolate, waiting for y'all to
hot
finish.
toddy.
Yeah, like I'm good. Y'all go have all the fun y'all want. I'm gonna be chilling down here next to the heater.
next to a roaring fireplace.
Right. Roasting marshmallows and making s'mores.
You're doing après ski without the ski.
Right, exactly. I ain't doing all that, man.
I got you.
All right. So we're gonna wrap up as we like to call it. Affectionately called the last sip. I already took mine. And I'm not gonna pour any more. If I pour any more, I'm not gonna get anything done today. So we're gonna head to the segment that we affectionately call the last sip. That's not the right dude. It's been too long, man. I don't even remember what I signed the buttons to anymore. So you get stuff like that. It's all good. That's how people know it's real.
Right.
So the last sip, Aubrey. This is the question I ask everybody at this time, and it's a very simple question.
Okay.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, wow, damn, that is. Oh man, we might need to hit pause so I can think about it. No, I think the first thing is, um, definitely making my parents proud, which I feel like I've done that. My dad was very much a disciplinarian, right? And the things that you fuss with your parents about, and you think they're holding you back, and this
Yeah.
discipline is one of those things that it's a life skill that if you have it, the things you can do are powerful, right?
Hmm.
So while I rebelled somewhat against those things, and as you get older, you realize, oh my gosh, that all those things that my dad, was trying to, my mom and dad were trying to teach me. Oh, it makes so much sense now. Setting time, setting up schedules and planning things and having discipline to go things. My dad is always nurturing the mind, body, spirit, right? So I think the first thing is just making my parent making sure my parents are proud of the sacrifice that they made, to again, migrate from their home to a foreign land. There's this saying, right? They ask a Jamaican, "Where you born?" Man from foreign, not from yard, or something like that, or man from yard, not from foreign. It just means, hey, I was born, in the country, in the country, and then I went a foreign, which basically I went abroad, kind of thing, right? So making sure that my parents are proud, I think that's probably like the biggest legacy that I can, immediate one that I could think that I would leave. And then, kind of leave the earth better than I found it. Kind of treat people, um, not be a terrible human, right?
Right.
So sort of treat people fairly and help others, where and how I can. Um, I, any sort of contributions that and it's hard to kind of look at, sort of contributions or things that you've done and kind of keep score or have a
Yeah.
running tabulation of those things and be like, and again, I'm not necessarily the biggest self promoter. Like I it the whole social media world, like I get it, but I have a hard time sort of self promoting because
Yeah.
it's fine if somebody recognizes you for your accomplishments, but also sort of a little bit like different for me to kind of be a big self promoter. But it's just one of those things that you kind of have to do something about it, right? You have to sort of establish a brand of some sort, right? So my legacy, my brand, I hope people, always felt that I treated them fairly. I helped them where I could, how I could. I helped them be better, I helped them be successful for my customers and people I work with from a client perspective. That I left them better than I found them, kind of thing, right? And I'm not at the point where like I feel like I have more of my life behind me than in front of me, but I starting to think about some of those things, right?
Yeah.
What mark do I kind of want to leave beyond the things that I've done, right? So I don't, I'm not writing a memoir or an autobiography, but you inevitably begin to sort of assess things, right?
Yeah.
You've done, where you are, where you're going. And I feel like my legacy isn't fully written yet. So I'm in a process of crafting it and creating it
Okay.
and building it. But it's a great question. That last sip, that's a man.
It's
That's
supposed
a
to be.
great question.
That
And
last
again,
sip is supposed to hit you.
huh?
That last sip is supposed to hit you. That's
The last
you
sip
know you're done.
hits me, man. I just want to leave people better than I. Hopefully nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes,
Right.
right? Inevitably, nobody's perfect, but kind of want to leave things better than you found them. Take care of the people that you care about, and I just feel like just not be a terrible human,
Yeah.
really. Just
All right.
not be a terrible. Just don't be a asshole, you know, fucktard.
Yeah. It's all good, man. I'm gonna add one thing to your legacy, right?
Yeah.
Put something on that damn wall behind you, bro. Like I need people to know Aubrey does not live in a prison cell. Like I promise you, like, but I don't know what it is with him in these Zoom and these podcast calls and this blank wall. Like I'm gonna need you to do something, bro. Like get a picture,
Yeah, yeah. I
black
mean,
paint, something.
I'm not a like I got minimal decorating skills, right?
Hey, dude, there's these people called interior decorators, and you can just cut a check and
Oh, man, I don't know. I'd rather spend the money on an experience. Right? I'd rather spend the money. I love to travel, right? And
yeah,
that's
I,
for many of us. This is tough, right?
yeah,
Um, and so I'd rather spend the money. You know, one of my cousins, right, had been to 15 countries before he was freaking 15, right? And I think that exposure sort of helps you understand the world and it gives you perspective, right?
right,
And I always find one of the things that kind of centers me, brings me back, is traveling to other countries. And I've
yeah,
been fortunate, been blessed. I've been to all kinds of spots around the world, and that perspective I think helps you understand the world in which you live, right?
yep,
Your place in the world, and helps you even understand the country that you live in, right? It just expands your horizon, right? You see things a little differently, and I really miss that. So rather than hiring an interior decorator to put something behind the wall, you know,
yeah.
I'd rather take that money and go visit a country that I haven't been to, someplace that I want to see, right?
Look, I
There,
get it. So, but at least go to Lowe's and get like a hammer nail. Just put a picture up. Oh, you know what? Mixed tiles, dog. You can take pictures out of your phone. They'll ship them to you, and you just put it on the wall, like a picture, please. Something.
okay. All right. Next podcast, I will find something for the wall. It's just innocuous, right? It's harmless, right? It's just a wall.
Yeah, when I put this out, look, all right, C3 squad members, look, when y'all listen to this, I would need you to go to the YouTube and just fast forward to this point and watch this. Aubrey needs help. So give your ideas of what he can do on the wall. Clearly something low key, cheap, since he doesn't want to spend a whole lot of money on it. I'm saying like mixed out, just put a picture up. We gonna get Aubrey. We gonna get that wall fixed. 2021, what we doing? We getting that wall fixed. C3
Okay.
squad.
What you can't tell is that the wall actually has like texture to it. You can't really you can't really see that, but it's not just a regular wall. Like the wall actually has some texture. It's got depth. It's just
Okay.
not showing up. Like
Okay.
why don't you can put in a background or something. Put the Jamaican flag back there or something. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Put the Jamaican flag. Out of one, many people. That's the motto of the island. So put that back.
Yeah.
Superimpose that in post production, please.
That means I gotta hire somebody to do that. I don't want to do it.
Oh,
You see that already set up. I don't understand. Like I gotta spend
no, I
money.
know you got skills like that. I know you got skills like that. Come on, man.
Uh, actually, it probably wouldn't be too hard because since it's all one. Well, it's not really one color, but we'll see what I can do. We can see what
Okay.
we can do.
All
Works
right. And I'll
all
work
right,
on it.
man.
All right, brother.
I'm gonna let you
Great
get back
talking
to
to you.
Yeah, man.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend. This is a pleasure. I hope we can do it again soon because I feel like we left a lot of things on the
Oh yeah.
table.
No, man. It's there's gonna be a series coming. We don't talk about a whole lot
Yeah.
more.
And whenever you're ready to race, we can make that happen too, man.
Okay, yeah. No, it's all right. I'm gonna come down with some things. It's okay. It's cool. And I'm gonna bring the Model Y. I'm gonna bring something else though too.
Look,
Right.
listen, this is an arms race. So if you step up to something, you know that I'm not far behind. Just know that if you do something, this is chess, not checkers. So just be aware. All right.
We got Cocktails Cooking Conversations brought to you by the On the Corner Media Group. Check us out at onthecorner.us for more great content.